right, Keith, the biggest news of the week. The new Everton Stadium will be called Hill Dickinson Stadium. What are your thoughts on the deal, the sponsorship, and how it all went down?
Well, I've got some thoughts about this, definitely, as you say. I was very surprised. Let me say, Everton had appointed an agency, Elevate, which is supposedly a global agency that had gone through the whole process. And we ended up with a local law firm. They claim to be an international law firm. They do have offices overseas, but they're not quite in what we call in the UK the magic circle of the really big law firms that we're talking about. Now, there is a strong Everton connection here, and let me explain that there was one of the first chairmen of Everton was a guy called William Cuff. We're talking about back in the early 1900s, and he was a lawyer, and his law firm Cuffs was bought by a company that became Halliwells, which is who I had as my lawyers when I was at Everton, and then Halliwells were in turn bought by Hill Dickinson. So there is a long thread of Everton history that goes through the whole situation. There's been numbers flying around as guesses in social media of being about a 10 million deal per year. Now, when I looked at the accounts for Hill Dickinson and compared them with another law firm that's pretty close in turnover that I know locally, and I saw the hospitality budget and marketing budget for the other company, which was only about 200 to 250,000 a year. So I don't know how Hill Dickinson, being so close in turnover, could be looking at 10 million. So that leads me to a guess. And again, this is purely my guesswork. And I obviously have to be very careful when you're speaking about law firms that you get things right, because they can be quite nasty. Is that I'm wondering if Everton, and let me say that we've talked about this in many weeks now, how litigation is becoming such an important part of the Premier League, and
Sadly,
very sadly, and how much that is going on. So I'm wondering if Everton have actually taken part payment in terms of legal fees, because it's as good as cash in some ways, because if you're almost guaranteed now to have a 10 to 15 million pound legal fee a year. So if they're taking that, that could be one way that I could see how that sort of number has been got to, if it is what they call payment in kind. Now, that then leads me to a slightly worrying situation, is that would they be necessarily the right lawyers to have in all these situations? When I looked on their website this morning, they didn't have a sports practice as such, but I know that they have handled a lot of property issues for the club. When I was there with Halliwells, they issued property and mainly HR issues, but they never got involved in what are now the high stakes situations that we're talking about. They're only a recent thing, as we talked about many times. So it leaves a lot of questions for me unanswered. And again, there is this local thread, and I get that, for Everton to have a local company and etc. That's the positive side. But there would have been glamour with some bigger international names, and I did expect the Friedkins to have gone for that sort of international glamour. That we're talking about Toyota Stadium, those sort of things. And the other point on that is, having been involved in naming rights myself in many occasions, once you've set the sort of level that you're at, it's very, very hard to then resell the next set of naming rights going up much higher. So there are some questions for me about this deal. I'm glad it's done early, and at least there'll be money coming in in whatever way it is, whether it's a saving on spending cash on legal fees. And listen, if it is payment in kind, good luck to Everton trying to keep track of legal fees, because I have enough scars on my back of fights with lawyers over legal fees. So there'll be arguments about that, I'm sure. But anyway, we have to look on the positive side. It's done. And there'll be money coming in that can certainly be coming in for next year. And now it's signed before the summer, it can be credited towards what will be hopefully transfer fees, which is the big thing.
And are you overall happy with this outcome? I mean, I know we were talking about Toyota or some really, truly big sponsors, and it doesn't seem like this is quite that.
You're right. I think it underwhelmed me, and a lot of the fans I've spoken to are underwhelmed as well. Look, we are where we are, and it's what's been decided. As I say, I'm surprised the Friedkins did take that. I mean, I thought they would have had part of their appeal as owners was they would bring in some international names. But we'll have to wait and see what more comes out about this deal. The club have been pretty tight-lipped about what any details are just now, and we'll have to see what plans there are. Hopefully, there's more to it, and there's some exciting thoughts behind how this whole naming rights is activated throughout the region as well.
And Everton have confirmed that Goodison will become home of the women's team. Is this an expensive move to keep the stadium running for the women's team?
Well, again, perhaps people will call me cynical, but I think this is all related to what Chelsea have done in terms of the valuation of the women's team. And so I think at some stage here, the Friedkins have actually, it's a clever idea to put the women's team into Goodison, because probably the valuation of Goodison now with the women's team in it, and if that was sold as a whole package, would be far higher than the amount they would probably have got for selling Goodison for property. So if we're saying that, Chelsea are valuing the women's team at 200 million, but with no property assets, if you put Goodison as property assets along with the women's team, then you're going to get a very healthy valuation for the Everton women's team now. So, as I say, it may have been a smart move, but I don't think it's necessarily all about being great for the women's team. It's no doubt it is a very big positive for them, and they're going to be playing in the biggest stadium in the UK that are solely used by a women's team, which is fantastic. It's, as we all know, it's a historic venue. It'll be a real, sought-after place for clubs to play against them. And I'm sure there'll be some decent crowds. I've heard they're going to keep the top tier of the whole stadium closed, but still the lower tiers would make it sensible. And if they can manage the upkeep of such an old stadium and get safety certificates, which should be easier, I hear they're going to replenish and refurbish the dressing rooms. Obviously, you're going to have to put in a lot more ladies' toilets into the whole stadium, which was notorious for only having one or two throughout Goodison. So there'll have to be some changes in those areas. But overall, look, you've got to think it's a positive, and it's a positive for the club, I think, in terms of the financial engineering that could now be done as well.
And Angus Kinnear insisted that Everton's world-class new stadium will improve revenue streams. How much of an impact could it have in increasing their turnover?
Well, Angus is absolutely right. And as I say, he started 2 weeks early. I think we're looking at somewhere between 60 to 70 million increase in turnover, which we're going to see very quickly in this next season. And so, the numbers for 24-25 are going to be pretty healthy. So that's my belief, particularly given that we've stabilised a lot of the debt issues and all the other things that have been, we've been playing with at since the takeover. So overall, it's going to be a very positive situation. Now, the key for Angus is going to be getting started quickly and getting out of the blocks quickly and really maximising the benefits of this new stadium. It's all. There's no point in trying to do it the year after, and obviously you're going to try and increase and make it better each year. But you've really got to take advantage of the new stadium effect now and get some deals done. So he's got his plate full, and that's why I've been disappointed that he's only come in the middle of May, because he would probably have liked at least 2 or 3 months to have a real run at this. But nevertheless, he's here now. I wish him all the very best, and I'll do any help I can to assist him. But let's just hope that they get that revenue up. 60 to 70 is what I'm thinking. It could be more with a following wind and they get some good deals. So let's see. I mean, Everton could be challenging for Europe next year. It's more attractive to sponsors. So big chances now to really turn things around.
And in somewhat shocking news, but not totally confirmed, Jurgen Klopp potentially taking the manager position at Roma, the other Friedkin-owned club. What are your thoughts on this? What will Everton's thoughts on this be? I mean, I'm not sure it's 100% true, but it's very shocking.
It certainly shocked me when I heard about it, and there's been counterclaims. I wouldn't be surprised if it's some Everton mischief that's been put out there on the grapevine somehow. I don't really see it happening. Apparently he's denying it, although through his agent, although I've yet to see anything from a really reliable source that can say either way. Look, there's a lot of rumours, though, that he has been hankering to get back in the game, really at the front end. I know it's a drug when you miss it as a manager. you do miss it. So many have told me that they need to get back in for their own mental health. And I think he's had a good layoff now. He's done the Red Bull work. It would make sense for him to come back. But if he was to be with Roma and having to help Everton as his sister club, that would bring a smile to many faces as big as the one I'm smiling right now. But let's see if it's confirmed. But certainly, Roma would be a great club for him to come back into. It would mean he'd keep his promise about not having to manage against Liverpool in the Premier League. But still, there would be a very close connection with Everton, which would lead to all sorts of humour, shall we say.
And Everton are looking to hire a Bramley Moore dock chief or a Hill Dickinson stadium chief. Is that an important role to get in as soon as possible?
It is. It's something that I believe that there's already somebody in place in terms of the revenue now, in terms of the stadium. They're going to need everything because it's going to be a 7-day-a-week fixture. It's going to be something that's going to be utilised 7 days a week. They want to maximise that revenue from doing morning till night, and also they want to be part of a very big regeneration project around the whole area. So there's going to be an awful lot of meetings to attend and see how the stadium's going to play into so many things. So many planning issues and development issues that are going to go on around the stadium. And we need somebody who can speak on behalf of that project, who has their finger on the pulse of the whole thing. And also making sure that every single meeting room is filled when matches aren't being played, and we really maximise the use of this fantastic asset, because there'll be a big demand to use that for meetings during the weeks.